אז כמובן שהדבר הראשון שלנו, אחד הפיוטריסטים, כי אנחנו לא רוצים להגיד נביאים, כי הנבואה כאמור רשתים, וולמארט, גוגל, הום דיפו, דיסני, BMW, סיטיבנק, eBay, אינטל, כולם נעזרים בו כדי להבין מה יהיה בעתיד, מה יהיה קדימה, איך להתכונן, מה צופן להם העתיד. Please welcome Mr. Douglas Stefan's Retail Prophets.
Good morning. Wow, is that ever loud? Can you take my voice down just a little bit? We don't want to jar everyone too early in the morning. Thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I want you to know right away, my role in coming to you today, all the way from Canada, is not to teach you how to operate shopping malls. That's really not my intention. My role in coming to you is to hopefully provide a broader perspective on the future and how consumer behavior is changing and how we as retailers and as developers and as shopping mall managers have to respond to those changes in order to meet new consumer demands. So we really want to look further ahead at the future of retail. And so maybe the best place to start with you today is I'll start here. Retail is dead. Thank you. Thank you very much. Actually, that's not the way I feel, but it is the way this gentleman feels. And I don't know how many of you might know this person. This is Mark Andreessen. Now, how many of you remember Netscape Navigator? Remember Netscape, one of the first internet browsers, right? So Mark was one of the founders of Netscape Navigator. He went on to become a very, very famous venture capitalist. He's one half of a firm called Andreessen Horowitz in Silicon Valley, and they're invested in just about every major internet property you can imagine, everything from Facebook to Pinterest to Airbnb and eBay. If Mark isn't invested in the company, he probably advises to it. So he's an incredibly smart, savvy, plugged-in entrepreneur. And he was quoted recently in an interview where he said, literally, that retail was dead. He said, brick and mortar retail is an untenable model. It's a model that cannot survive. And he said there will be a few major internet marketplaces that will dominate the landscape. No one else will be able to compete with them. And everything we buy, we will buy online. And I recall distinctly 3 words that he said that really rang out for me, and those were software eats retail. That's what he said. So as you can imagine, there was an uproar in the retail community. Analysts on both sides started arguing and debating these points. Some people said that's nonsense. This is just an investor who's promoting his own interests in online investments. And other people said, no, just look around. Look at the travel industry, look at the banking industry, look at how these industries are being disrupted by technology. I decided instead to just look at some of the facts, to be less passionate about it and just look at some of the facts. And the facts are pretty compelling. For example, in 2015, $1.6 trillion was conducted online globally. Now, the $1.6 trillion might not impress you, because you really don't have much to compare it to. But what should impress you is the growth of that number, because it represents about a 21% year-on-year increase. A staggering level of increase. When you compound that, it's quite amazing. To put a point on it, I'm sure most of you heard about Singles Day. Most of you have heard about Singles Day. So just to give you an idea, on Singles Day, which just happened on November 11th, just passed, in the first hour of Singles Day, Alibaba sold $5 billion worth of merchandise. Say what? That's a lot of merchandise, right? $5 billion. So I had to sort of think about that in terms of what that actually equates to. It's $83 million a minute for every minute of the first hour of Singles Day. Now, to put that in perspective, the average Home Depot store, which I guess is sort of the equivalent of a home center store in Israel, sells about $36 million in a fiscal year. So in every minute of the first hour of Singles Day, Alibaba was selling almost what 2 of these stores sell in an entire fiscal year. And if that doesn't sort of freak you out, then what might is that in that first hour of Singles Day, Alibaba sold almost double what the entire United States did online on Black Friday, all day long, right? Just to give you an appreciation of how enormous that sum is. And these kinds of figures now are not that unusual, these growth figures. I mean, even in Israel, for example, I mean, you're about $3.6 billion in online sales. What's impressive, though, to me is that the compounded annual growth figure over the last 5 years has been about 25%. So growing at a really, really staggering rate. You have phenomenal online penetration for your country, one of the highest in the world. And your smartphone usage is also one of the highest in the world. So all of this bodes very, very well for growth in e-commerce. Now, I know that last mile delivery issues are a problem. I know that the postal infrastructure is not that supportive of online growth, but I'm a believer that necessity is the mother of invention, and I think that there will be solutions that are developed to that, as long as consumers are ordering and want to order more goods online. So I think all of this bodes very well. What's concerning, however, in all of these growth figures is that in the United States, for example, Amazon now takes 60% of every incremental dollar that gets spent online. Goes directly to Amazon. Everyone else fights over the remaining 40%. And it's not just retailers that are being hurt by companies like Amazon. In fact, 51% of product searches now online do not go through Google, they go through Amazon. Amazon has become the default search engine for products. Consumers are going directly there instead of going through Google. So the estimate is now that by about 2020, 40% of global e-commerce is going to go to these three companies. 40% market share of the entire world's e-commerce to these three companies. To the point where it's no longer a challenge for e-commerce companies to get us to buy things online, right? We're buying things now that we never thought we would buy. In 2015, for example, Alibaba sold 6,500 cars online on Singles Day. Nobody ever looked at them or drove them or tested them. They just bought them. We're buying fashions, we're buying glasses and optical wear. We're buying things that we never thought we would buy online. To the point where the challenge now is for e-commerce companies to actually get the things that we're buying to us in a reasonable period of time. And that reasonable period of time is decreasing all the time. So we see companies establishing lockers where we can pick things up. We see little robots being tested in London that deliver groceries within a 5-mile radius of retailers, completely autonomous. We're seeing Jeff Bezos, of course, saying he'll land a little helicopter right on our front porch and deliver our goods to us through drone delivery. And in fact, when Jeff Bezos said that, the whole drone delivery thing, it really captured people's attention. But what it took our eye off of was the fact that Jeff Bezos in the background was building a delivery infrastructure that will rival some of the largest couriers and delivery services in the world. Amazon now has its own fleet of thousands of trucks on the road in the United States. They also have their own flexible on-demand delivery service, where if you're 18 or over and you have a clean driving record, you can earn money delivering parcels for Amazon in your spare time. Amazon also recently bought their own fleet of 727 jets, cargo jets, so that they can deliver to various parts of the world without being dependent on FedEx or UPS. Now, just to show you how ridiculous this whole delivery war has gotten, Amazon recently applied for a patent for what it's calling anticipatory shipping. And what that means, in theory, is that Amazon may start delivering you things before you order them. They might even start delivering before you know you want something. And they believe, this is for real, they believe that they're going to be able to do that because they're going to have such an advanced level of analytics on a given household or a given individual that they will be able to anticipate what we're likely to order, and they'll be able to ship those goods a little closer to us so that when we do order it, we can have it in a matter of minutes, perhaps not hours or days. So, while some of the world's largest retailers are still trying to sort of get their arms around this idea of omni-channel, Amazon is negotiating for Frankfurt Hahn Airport. That's the level at which this has become imbalanced. You have conventional retailers trying to catch up, and you have Amazon in a totally different headspace. So the question now is, people are saying, when is this going to end? When does this 25% growth start to trail off and become normal like the rest of the retail market? And the truth is, it's probably not for a long, long time. And I'll tell you why. I sort of feel like we're at the end of the beginning of e-commerce. I think Amazon and Alibaba and eBay, they were just chapter 1 in the story of e-commerce. And it's going to be a long story as it unfolds. Because as you can see outside, I think this is really the future of how we're going to shop online. Now, I know that a lot of us might think this is kind of strange, this idea of sitting at home with these goggles on and having these virtual experiences. It doesn't necessarily feel very natural, but I can tell you right now there are a lot of companies out there who are working on building more and more realistic retail experiences using virtual technology all the time. This is one of them. This is a company called 6 Sense. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, this is what this young lady is doing. And on the left-hand side, this is what she's actually experiencing. So she can go into a store, she can pick up merchandise, she can look at it, she can get information, change the color of the product, watch videos, price compare, all of the functions that you might expect online, but she's doing this in a very physical and a very natural sort of way. Now, I'll grant you, it looks a little like a video game, doesn't it? I mean, the resolution isn't that great, and that's really been the problem with virtual technology, is that it's close, but it's just not quite perfect. But I want to show you where this is going. This is a company called Magic Leap. Anyone heard of Magic Leap? Yeah, a few of you techies. Well, you're going to see something like that. Magic Leap is a company out of Florida. And they have created a technology that's called mixed reality. It's not virtual reality, it's mixed reality. So it overlays digital content onto the physical world. But it does it by using your eyes and your brain as the processor, not a screen or not a smartphone. They did a demonstration recently in a high school in Florida, and this is how that demonstration looked. Does that look fairly real to you? Yeah? It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, this is the level of reality now that they are able to create using this new technology, which is called light field technology. So imagine now shopping experiences that feel 100% immersive and real. So real, you kind of want to get out of the way. You know what I mean? We also know that the internet's becoming more physical in nature. This is a technology called haptography. And this was developed out of the University of Pennsylvania by a lady named Catherine Kuchenbecker and her research team. And what they do is they take the feeling of things, so the texture of things, and they convert that texture into vibration, into data. And they program that data into that pad, and when you move that stylus that they have in their hand across that pad, you actually feel the feeling of that material. So in this case, this person is feeling in their fingertips the feeling of denim. And they're feeling it just exactly as you would if you were moving your hand across that surface. So for Catherine and her team, her future world is a place where you can not only see that whale potentially coming out of the floor, but you can reach out and you can touch it. You can feel the texture of its skin. That's the world that she envisions. And certainly if we were having this conversation 10 years ago, and I had told you that for for a couple of $1,000s US, you could go out and buy a device you could keep in your home and you could print physical objects on demand. You'd have thought I was out of my mind, right? But now, of course, we can do that, and it's pretty common, and we don't even think twice about 3D printing. The question is, when is 3D printing going to become an accepted part of the manufacturing process? When can we as consumers design something at home and have it actually produced for us via 3D printing? Well, that answer came from one source anyway. Eric Sprunk is the COO of Nike, and he was asked at a conference recently, when are we going to be able to design and print our own running shoes? And he said, that's coming very soon. And I was taken by that statement, and so I actually checked with this gentleman, and this gentleman's name is Joseph DeSimone, and he's invented a technology that speeds up 3D printing by up to 100 times. How many of you saw the movie Terminator 2? Anyone watch that movie? Okay, so if you saw that movie, you'll remember when there's a puddle of Terminator goo on the ground, and the Terminator rises up out of that puddle. You remember how the Terminator reforms himself, right? So that's exactly the way Joe's technology works. He's able to use elastomerics, he's able to use a lot of very different materials, resins, and he's able to print extremely fast and with extremely good quality. He confirmed with me that he's actually working with a running shoe company that will allow you, as a consumer, to sit at home and design your shoes at home exactly the way you want them, hit print on your computer, and then go to the store and your shoes will be waiting for you. That's the test that they're going to be taking on very shortly. We also know that the world is becoming infinitely more connected. Right now there's about 15 billion connected devices on the planet, most of which you're very familiar with, these kinds of devices. But over the next 10 years, we expect that number to balloon to about 500 billion connected devices. And this will be things we never imagined, pills that we swallow that talk to our pharmacists and our doctors and our healthcare providers, things that we put under our skin potentially that act as our credit cards and our passports and our driver's licenses. Our appliances are becoming connected, our automobiles are becoming connected. There's even clothing now that you can buy that is connected, that actually gives you biofeedback. There's a shirt you can buy that will actually tell you when you're going to have a heart attack. And it sends a special ringtone to your phone just before you have your heart attack. Now imagine being in an important meeting with a client and that ringtone rings. That's a call you have to take, right? Excuse me, I'm about to have a heart attack. I'll be right back. So, this is the world that we're moving into. It's a reality. It's not science fiction anymore. These things are actually happening, and they're starting to manifest themselves in the consumer market. We saw Amazon Dash buttons, for example, are now pretty commonplace. People are ordering these little Wi-Fi connected buttons, putting them around their homes. And so if you need more detergent, you just push a button and detergent comes to your home. If you need more diapers, you push a button and diapers come to your home. Now, some people were critical of these and they said, who's going to want to put all these crazy buttons all over their house? That's insane. But this was really just a first step. What Jeff Bezos and his team at Amazon are doing now is they're building that DRS, Dash Replenishment Services technology directly into products. So this Brita water filter, for example, reorders its own filter when the filter is no longer any good. You don't even have to think about it. A new one just comes to your home, completely reordered through your Amazon Prime account. So think of the thousands of various products that can operate with that technology. Your running shoes, for example, when they get worn out, you could program it so that they just order a new pair in the same size, same style, if that's the ones you like. And this is going to be the world that we live in. We estimate that by 2025, it is possible that up to 30% of the routine purchases that we make on a daily, weekly, monthly basis could come to us via sensor replenishment. Things that we don't even have to go to the store for anymore or even think about. And this is making it a lot easier for brands to go direct to consumer. We know right now about 40% of brands already sell direct to consumer, and we're seeing those numbers explode. Just between 2012 and 2013, there was a 70% rise in the number of brands that are now selling directly to consumers, not even going through retail. 52% of consumers actually want to do business directly with brands and not go through retail distribution if they don't have to. They would rather have a relationship with the brand. And brands are capitalizing on this with technology. We're seeing Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, all of them now are developing their own versions of virtual digital assistants. Devices that can be with us at all times, and we can literally just speak to them. As opposed to typing or clicking or looking at pictures, we can just speak to these devices and tell them what we want. You've probably seen the Amazon Echo. This was apparently one of the biggest holiday gifts this year was the Amazon Echo. People are buying it like crazy and giving it as a gift. So the question we have to ask as retailers, as shopping mall developers and managers, we have to ask, will you be heard in an Echo world, in a world where everyone has one of these in their home, and they're simply saying, buy this book for me, or buy this pair of shoes for me, Alexa, and this device is doing that purchasing. Will your brand be heard in that world? It's a question we have to ask. And certainly, all of this is taking a toll on a lot of international brands. They're downsizing, they're closing stores, they're relocating, they're struggling now to get online. Home Depot and Walmart, for example, are spending billions of dollars in an effort to become increasingly omni-channel what they do. So, we come sort of full circle. And you do have to ask, is he right? I mean, are we actually going to be seeing the death of retail in the near future? And I really thought long and seriously about that. And my answer is no, we're not. And I'll tell you why I say that. It's not because Mark Andreessen isn't a really, really smart guy, and he knows what's going on, but the fact of the matter is, if shopping in stores is not important to us, then we wouldn't do things like this, right? We would not line up outside the Apple store and do the victory march into that store unless there was something inherently social about shopping. And it's also physiological. It's proven, that shopping has good shopping has exactly the same effect on our brains as crack cocaine. Did you know that? It's true. You get exactly the same rush of a chemical called dopamine directly into your cerebral cortex when you have a great shopping experience. And it's actually, this is the interesting thing about dopamine. If you are guaranteed to get what you want, your dopamine levels are average. But if there's even a small chance that you won't get exactly what you want when you want it, your dopamine levels are actually higher, which explains a lot of things. It explains gambling, it explains drug use and that sort of thing, but it also explains shopping. And when you think about it, if Amazon becomes this huge marketplace that sells everything, and you know that just by going to Amazon you get exactly what you want, your dopamine levels are going to be relatively low. But when you go to a shopping center and you don't know that you're going to get exactly what you want, or you might be surprised to find something you didn't expect, your dopamine levels go through the roof. So shopping in the physical world is potentially actually better for your brain than shopping online. And frankly, if online were really the best solution, then why would all of these online pure play retailers be coming offline to open stores? Why would Amazon be opening bookstores, which it is, if you can appreciate the irony of Amazon opening bookstores? They're going to open bookstores, convenience stores, grocery stores, and I think it's because they recognize that you can't fully actualize as a brand until you have a physical and maybe even an emotional connection with a consumer. And I think Apple has known that for years. Apple is really, one of the pioneers in terms of redefining the physical shopping experience. So we are going to have physical shopping long into the future. Please don't be afraid that stores are going to go away. They're not. They're not going to go away. However, we also have to appreciate that everything about those stores, where they are, why consumers go to them, how they shop in them, and even what shopping means is going to change. And it's going to change very dramatically over the next 10 years. And it's not just a bump in the road, you know, that we're going to go over and everything's going to go back to normal. I sort of look at it and say it's a crash into the end of an era in shopping. This is really the end of an era and the beginning of something entirely new. And in particular, it's the end of this model. You know, this model for going to market that we've used for the last 60 years or longer, which basically said, look, as long as you have a decent proposition, it takes lots of advertising, and as long as you're spending lots of money on advertising, eventually all that advertising is going to convert to repeat business at the store. That was the model that we operated retail on for decades. The problem with that model now is that it's broken. The funnel is broken, and it doesn't work the same way anymore. And companies are spending a fortune on advertising, but they're not getting the same results that they used to. And I'll prove it to you. I'll tell you why. Here's a little a poll. How many of you, when you watch TV at night, have your laptop, your mobile device, or your tablet with you while you watch television? Okay. Is there anyone who doesn't? Okay, we all do, right? So who's watching all the commercials? I mean, when a commercial comes on, do you put your tablet down and watch the commercial? No, that's when you pick your tablet up when the commercial comes on, right? You check your Facebook page or your Instagram or whatever the case may be. So we're having these dual screen experiences, and frankly, it's completely obliterating television advertising. It is to the point now where Nielsen had to change the ratings for TV, the way that they measure ratings, to account for these new behaviors. They found during live programming, like the Academy Awards or the Super Bowl or the World Cup, only about 45% of people are actually watching that program while it's being broadcast. The other 55% are watching it later, up to 30 days later, across multiple different kinds of devices. So how on earth, as a marketer, do you market to consumers that are doing that? And even if you do capture someone's attention, the problem is the path to purchase now is no longer like a funnel. It's like this. It's this crazy pattern where consumers might start on a Facebook page and they might wind up on a mobile app, or they may start on a mobile app and wind up in a store. You have no idea. The path is completely circuitous. You have no sense anymore of where consumers are going to go or how to control the conversation with them along the way. And along that path to purchase, our whole sense of selection and variety has changed forever, hasn't it? I mean, I remember going into my first big box store in the late 1980s, an electronics store, and I remember looking around and thinking, it was like Disney World, you know, all this product. It was just amazing. All these televisions, you know, maybe 50 or 100 televisions. But now, if you go to Amazon and search televisions, you get 500,000 results. So in 30 years, we've gone from 50 televisions to 500,000 being a selection. And if you're not sure, then there's lots of reviews that you can read as well. There's 1,428 reviews on an HDMI cable. Now, how good does an HDMI cable have to be for you to take the time to review it, you know? But 1,428 people did. And more of this information, this universe of selection, is no longer sitting at home on our desktop, right? It's in the palm of our hand, in the form of our mobile device. The whole universe of selection is available to us right here. But I mean, this is a technology group. I don't need to convince you of that, right? I mean, look around, you look around the hotel, and this is what you see. People together, alone, having their own little experiences on their mobile device. You go to live events last night. When the band started playing at dinner last night, what did everyone do? First thing everyone does is pull out their smartphones and they turn into the video crew. And then you go back later and you watch it like you were never even there, you know? These are the kinds of experiences we're having. Now, here's a prediction, and I'm not sure about this one, so don't hold me to this, okay? But we think this is how the end of the world might look as well. So I'm not sure about that, but just be prepared. Have your device fully charged, ready to go. But it is to the point now where 1 out of 2 retail transactions by January of 2017, 1 out of 2 retail transactions is going to be touched in some way by a mobile device. It may be to look up an address or a phone number. It may just be to transact. Mobile purchasing over Black Friday in the United States was up by 18% on Friday from a year before. 18%. Total retail was only up 3, but mobile was up 18. So what does all this do? It puts the consumer in control. Right, once and for all, the consumer is fully in control. They have all the information, they have all the selection, they have everything they need to make their own decisions about where they buy, who they buy from, and how they buy. Because as soon as you can put a buy button on everything in the world, everything becomes a store. The store is everywhere. Right? The store is not where Walmart decides it's going to be or where Home Center decides it's going to be. The store is wherever the consumer wants it to be, whenever they want it. Now that makes us have to question the purpose of a store, the purpose of a shopping mall. In a world where the shopping mall is in my pocket, what's the purpose of a physical shopping center? Because when you think about it, it hasn't really changed that much for 200 years or more. You know, from the grand department stores of Europe all the way through to, excuse me, all the way through to outlet malls, nothing much has really changed about how we shop or where we shop. But I have a theory, and the theory is this. It's more complex than Mark Andreessen's theory. See, for Mark Andreessen, he says, well, as e-commerce grows, brick and mortar must die. So by Mark Andreessen's logic, in 20 years, all your shopping malls will be closed. I mean, really, at the rate of growth of e-commerce, all your shopping malls will be closed if you listen to Mark Andreessen. But I think that there's something a lot more complex going on, and a lot more interesting and fascinating too, and that is this. What's actually happening is that media, in all of its formats, is, thank you. Thanks. This galley looking after me. Thank you. Cheers. Media in all of its formats is becoming the store. And what I mean by that is the things that we have traditionally depended on stores to do for us, namely merchandise products, deliver product information to us, and then facilitate a purchase, are being done infinitely well online. Amazon does a brilliant job of all 3 of those things, displaying products, giving us product information, and then facilitating purchase. So, the question is, what does this mean? What does this really mean for retail? Well, if you look at the old role of media, it was to tell a brand story, to create product interest, to get us excited about a product, and then ultimately to drive us to a retail outlet. The difference now is that media is actually doing that. Media is a direct route to purchase. I could buy directly now from every page of Harper's Bazaar magazine that has an ad on the page. All the ads are interactive. I can buy directly from a YouTube video, from a piece of music or a sound, from my smart TV, my social network. The list goes on and on and on. Everything is now a direct path to purchase. So, I come back to the question, what is the purpose of a store in that reality? And here's the thing. Stores are becoming media. Stores are becoming, and I would argue, the most powerful form of media that a brand has at its disposal. So, again, I'll repeat it. Media is becoming the store, and stores, in return, are going to become a powerful form of media. But in order to make that leap, it means that retailers and shopping malls have to start thinking differently about what they do. And that is, if you have a store, the store cannot simply be a means of delivering product anymore. It can't just be a means of distributing product. It has to be a channel for distributing experiences. Totally different way of thinking about things, right? Experiences with those products, but experiences. It's no longer good enough to just have a store that has a selection of product. That's nothing anymore. It's less about having a store. Here's a grocery store. Isn't that inspiring? Just makes you hungry looking at it, doesn't it? You know, terrible, right? But it's not about having a store. It's about having a story to tell. What is the story that your store or your shopping center is trying to tell to consumers, and how are you drawing them into that story? This is a store that's called Globetrotter Outdoor. It's in Germany. They have about 12 stores in Germany. It was started in 1979 by a guy named Klaus Denhardt, and when he opened the store and he invited customers in, he offered them live mealworms to eat when they came into the store, which sounds really gross, but it was his way of starting the story about that store, because he was an adventurer. He was a guy that had climbed mountains and paddled rivers, you know, and hiked everywhere. So this story was the living telling of that adventure. So when you go to that store, you can paddle a canoe, you can sail a boat, you can scuba dive, you can climb, you can go into an Arctic chamber with cold weather clothing on. It's a true experience, and it's a true story. Disney is probably one of the best storytellers of all, right? And if you think about your shopping center as a theme park, which really it is in a way, it's a theme park for shoppers. Think about what John Hench said. He said, story is the cornerstone of all Disney theme parks. So when they start building a theme park, they don't think about what rides they're going to put in it and what characters they're going to have until they've decided what the story is. Then everything starts to come out of the story. Going to the store or going to the mall is going to be less about just going and taking something home, right? This is going to seem crazy in 10 years that we still go to the store to pick things up and take them home. It's going to seem odd. It's going to be more about going to stores to make things, to be a participant in something, to go to co-create, to customize, to learn how to do something. This is a store called Tanya Heath, and there are about 9 stores in the world, one in Paris, I know there's one in Toronto and a few elsewhere, where you can go in and you can actually custom design shoes. And then ladies, you'll like this, you can buy interchangeable heels for your shoes, so you can make them flats during the day if you want, and then turn them into stilettos at night when you're ready for business, right? But you can change them out, so you don't have to buy all these different shoes. You can make the shoe you like and then tailor it with different heels. It's going to be a lot less about product, right? We already said 500,000 TVs on Amazon. We don't need more product. We need production value. We need unique experiences that I can have with those products. This is the new Sonos store in New York City. Sonos makes wireless speakers. They're really awesome wireless speakers for your home. And they know that we don't need another wireless speaker, but we need great experiences. So these little vignettes are actually listening rooms that you can go into that are fully equipped with Sonos products, and you can go in and have an awesome listening experience the same way you would in a really cool friend's apartment. It's going to be a lot less about commerce retail. Most retailers would look at this space and they would say that's a recipe for bankruptcy, right? There's no products there. How am I going to make any money if there's no products? But in fact, this is the key to this business's success. This is a store called Bandier in New York City, and under normal circumstances, this space looks like this. This is filled with people who come to do yoga and fitness classes with celebrity instructors, really well-known instructors, and then they do have a small store underneath the studio, but most of their sales occur online. But it's that sense of community that this store builds that really makes the difference. Angela Ahrens recently came from Burberry over to Apple. She's now their Senior Vice President of Retail, and she says, you know, the store is really our biggest product, right? Forget about MacBooks and phones and that sort of thing. The store is the product. When you walk into that store, that's the experience. So expect stores to be less static. You know, this is an appliance store, right? We've all seen a million stores like this, but this is an appliance store as well. This is a store called Perch. And they're again, it's a small chain of stores, but these are completely immersive environments where every single appliance in the store is plugged in, it works, you can push the buttons, you can see how big the flames are on the elements, you can try everything. They sell kitchen, bath, and outdoor. You can even have a shower in the store if you want. As long as you bring a bathing suit, you can have a shower in the store. And you can try out all these really cool shower heads that they have. So again, completely immersive and interactive experiences. It's going to be a lot less about just having masses of inventory. You know, in the 80s and 90s, it was all about how much inventory you could put into a store. Now it's going to be about more inspiration, information, and the ability to give customers a chance to play and learn and be inspired. We're going to need a lot fewer people in retail in the next decade, a lot fewer. And I say clerks, retail clerks, people who are looking up prices, looking up SKUs. We're just not going to need as many of them. Already we're starting to see more and more artificial intelligence now come into the retail environment. The North Face is now using artificial intelligence to help you select everything you need for your vacation in terms of outerwear and equipment. And it's a really amazing interface that's powered by Watson. So we're going to need a lot fewer people. In fact, Oxford University did a study, and they recommend that there's a 92% chance that over the next decade, retail salespeople are going to be displaced by robotics and artificial intelligence, a vast number of them. Now that accounts for millions of people around the world. So does that mean we're not going to need people in retail? No. It just means we won't need clerks. We're going to need lots of brand ambassadors, people who love their products, who are really co-creators and love working with people. So the role of salesperson is going to be elevated over the next decade. Because what great retailers and great shopping malls understand is that it won't be about conversion within the four walls of the center anymore. It's going to be about giving experiences that create converts to a brand, that really creates such an amazing feeling in someone that they just can't even imagine buying somewhere else or from someone else. And they'll buy across channels and across devices, right? That's the way this is going to play out. And that's going to help attract this consumer, the millennial, right? The consumer that has never not known the internet, right? Has never not had a question answered by Google. That consumer. And right now there's a lot of speculation about that consumer, and most of it is around this. I hear people my age say they have no interest in physical experiences. All they want to do is be on their mobile device, right? That's how they talk to their friends, that's how they want to buy everything. Well, if millennials have no interest in physical experiences, then my question is, how do we explain this, right? These kinds of festivals, this is the Tomorrowland Festival, it's going to be happening in Belgium in 2017, Digital Music Festival. These go on all around the world, right? So millennials seem pretty interested in physical experiences to me. The problem is we're not giving them those experiences at retail. And they've indicated that that's really important to them. Experiences are more important, in fact, than the product, and they are more important in terms of driving loyalty than products are as well, right? The experience that a millennial has with a brand is more important than the product itself. So we're seeing smart retailers like Whole Foods, Adidas, Marriott Hotels, and others now transforming their businesses to be about delivering experiences first and products second. Products come along for the ride. So think about your shopping malls. Is it experience first, product second, or is it kind of retail first and experience if there's time? Is it, which way is it? So what's the big idea here? We've only got a few minutes left together. What's the big idea? The big idea is this. The model for the way retail happens is changing. This is Alan Zeman. Alan Zeman is a guy who was a Canadian, he's a developer, and he was very, very instrumental in redeveloping a significant portion of the Hong Kongese retail market. And he said recently, the old model, 70% retail, 30% food and entertainment. That's always been kind of the model. He said it's got to invert. We don't need that much retail anymore. And we're going to need less and less retail as we start buying more and more things online. So the whole model has to be completely inverted. So what are we going to be adding? Well, there's lots of things we can add. We need to add entertainment, art and culture, food, leisure, health and fitness, sports. This is a friend of mine, Mark Toro, and he's a general manager of North American Properties in Atlanta. And he says he's not even in the shopping center business. Now, he has shopping centers. He said, but that's not my business. I'm in the entertainment and hospitality industry. That's what I do. This is the way his centers look on any given day. That is like a real, that is not, there is no Photoshop here, okay? This is the real, this is called Avalon. This is one of his new centers. You can eat, sleep, play, live at this center. They have sporting events. They have movie nights where everyone comes and sits outside and watches movies on the big screen. And he's designed it so the whole thing is like a brilliant experience. Now, how many of you, just listen closely for a second, how many of you recognize this sound? Remember that? Yeah. You're still not online. No, still not online. Yeah. Okay, so we remember that, right? How many of you would like to go back to that time? Yeah, when you had to dial up to get on the internet and pictures loaded on your screen like, like that. None of us want to go back to that time. It was incredibly inconvenient, right? Now we get online like that. However, look at the way we shop, right? We drive around a parking lot 25 times looking for a parking space. It's exactly like that sound you just heard. We carry all of our bags, right, to the point where we're exhausted. We can't even shop anymore because we're carrying so much stuff. We're waiting 20 minutes just to buy a cup of coffee sometimes. It's ridiculous, right? So all these things that we just say, well, that's the way it is, right? That's like saying, well, the internet's dial-up, and it will be dial-up forever. But it doesn't have to be, right? We can have connected parking lots with sensors that actually tell consumers where the empty spaces are. We can offer ship-to-home services, like Simon Properties is. So when you buy a bunch of stuff, you can just have it shipped to your house. We can have order-ahead food, so you can place your order and pick it up at a definite time. Personal shoppers to help us find what we want. Events at the center. A concierge, right? We have them in hotels. Why don't we have more of them in shopping centers? And we need to start measuring all of this differently too. There are companies here that actually do offline analytics. So what that means is your shopping mall has to become more like a website. You need to know who came there, where did they go, what did they interact with, which stores did they go into, which ones did they go into and leave immediately, which stores does nobody ever go to, right? You need to know all that and treat it very, very much like a website. And the good news is all of these technologies to measure these things exist. They exist today, and the investment you make in them is going to pay off dramatically over the future. Because look, the way it all shakes out, guys, is this. In this world where I can order a car from Alibaba using my smartphone, nobody needs what we sell anymore. It doesn't matter how much stuff you have in your shopping mall. Nobody needs any of it because they can just go elsewhere and find it and buy it somewhere else. The good news is they need how you sell it. How you sell what you sell defines what you do. But yes, you have to innovate. You have to get creative. And no, that was not me in the hotel room last night, okay? I just want you to know that. I ate with everyone else. But look at the companies that are disrupting. Look at the companies that are now changing the world. Warby Parker, changing how people buy optical wear online. Dollar Shave Club is changing the way people buy razor blades and razors online. They just sold to Unilever for $1 billion, right? They did $150 million a year in razor blades. Airbnb is going to put more people in more rooms this year than Hilton hotels, and Uber is changing the transportation industry. All of these guys did one thing and one thing only, and that was they broke the rules. They knew what the rules were, and they deliberately set out to break them. So now you have to break the rules in your own industry. You have to question everything about how shopping centers run. And most of the time, all of these things will be reinforced by industry experts. You know, well, this is the way shopping centers have to run. You know, it has to always be percent rent. That's the only way you can make money. You need to challenge all of the assumptions and try something different. So all of these things are fair game. And when you come up with scary ideas, don't be afraid. I mean, that's a good thing. If you get an idea that makes you sick to your stomach, it's probably pretty innovative. Nobody's done it before. So you have to find a way that you can go first with that idea. You need to be the one in the marketplace that goes first. Look at a company like Starbucks Coffee, always trying new things. Most of them fail, but they get a tremendous amount of learning from those efforts to try new things, and they're consistently outperforming in their category. So go first, and you'll be fine. I promise. About 90% of the time. Now, every now and then, you will make a mistake, right? But, as you can see, every mistake is an opportunity to learn. You see how those other penguins learned an important lesson that day? That you just don't do that. But the good news is, if you do make it past the whale's mouth, that you are the first in the water, and you get to enjoy all of the food that exists down there. So you have to find a way to try these ideas in a safe way and try them first. In closing, I just want to say I lied to you earlier, and I apologize for it. I said that the funnel was broken and it doesn't work anymore. In fact, the funnel does work. It just works in reverse now. Rather than pouring tons of money into the top of the funnel, what you have to do is pour tons of money into the bottom of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel is what happens in your shopping centers every single day. Just in the time I've been talking, millions of consumers have probably been in and out of your centers and had experiences of some kind. The question is, what kinds of experiences? So we need to make sure that every one of those experiences is phenomenal, and then the consumer becomes the most powerful media engine you have at your disposal. That's the world that we live in. So, final thought. People say, what is this notion of futurism? What does a futurist do? My job isn't to predict the future, and nor is yours. It's really not. You don't want to spend your time predicting the future that you get. That's no way to live. What you want to do is spend the time now understanding what's going on, really internalizing it, and then engineering the future that you want. And that future starts right now. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.